17-year-old Trinity Bostic was not the type of teenager anyone expected to run away from home. But in the summer of 2024, that is exactly what she did, making a choice that caught her friends and family completely by surprise. As the days stretched on, concern quickly turned into a cold, sharp panic. Her cell phone had vanished from the network, and for a time, Trinity seemed to have successfully dissolved into the new life she had sought for herself. However, there was one person who was aware of her clandestine arrangements, and unfortunately, he had formulated a dark and devious agenda of his own. I am Kevin, and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today, we examine a case that is both strange and devastating. In the end, the weight of the evidence leaves little doubt about what occurred and who was responsible for the tragedy. Yet, throughout this narrative of unpredictable behavior and erratic decisions, there remains much that is truly difficult to comprehend. Just over an hour northeast of Nashville lies the town of Lafayette in Macon County, Tennessee. The region is known for the scenic Winding Stairs nature trails and a notable local landmark known as the Red Barn Winery and Vineyard. During the summer of 2024, Trinity Bostic operated an automotive repair and body shop in Lafayette. He shared a deep passion for classic cars with his 17-year-old daughter, Trinity. Trinity had recently completed her junior year at Macon High School and spent her evenings and weekends working alongside her father. On Saturday, June 29th, the two spent a typical morning working in the shop together. Trinity had performed a welding job that morning that earned high praise from her father, who was eager to get her started on a classic pickup truck after lunch. However, Trinity asked to go home instead to finish some yard work. Her father agreed and dropped her off at the house. But when Timothy returned home around 4 p.m. that day, he found her car parked in its usual spot. Her keys were still inside the house, but Trinity was gone. Timothy attempted to call her, but received no answer, prompting him to send his first text at 4:03 that afternoon, telling her to answer the phone. He followed up with simple hellos 2 minutes and 5 minutes later. It was highly uncharacteristic for Trinity to leave without telling her father where she was going. She had mentioned that her plan was to move some cleared brush to a nearby woodland before returning home. Her final message to her father suggested that everything was fine, stating at 2:08 p.m. that she was home and that she loved him. Yet only 2 hours later, she had gone completely silent. By 4:17 p.m., Timothy texted that he was going to call the police, a step he followed through on immediately by reporting her missing to the local sheriff. The frantic father continued to message her, begging for a sign of her safety. At 5 o'clock that evening, he received a single line of text from Trinity's phone, stating that she was okay and she was sorry. All subsequent messages sent that night failed to elicit any response at all. The next morning, after consulting with the sheriff and loved ones, he wrote to his daughter one last time, pleading for her to call him and expressing the deep worry felt by everyone. The Macon County Sheriff's Office initially determined that Trinity was a teenage runaway. Before she left, the 17-year-old had confided in friends that she intended to leave home and start a new life. One friend recalled receiving a text about her plan to run away, but admitted she did not believe it until the sheriff arrived at her door. She had tried calling Trinity 32 times that night, knowing she would normally always answer. Trinity Bostic was the youngest child in a large blended family. On her mother's side, she had 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and on her father's side, she had another 3 brothers. That autumn, Trinity was scheduled to begin her senior year at Macon High School. Her close circle of friends described her as a quirkier teenager who was always joking around and bringing light to those around her. On her YouTube channel, Trinity often showed her playful side, but she was also frequently contemplative, using the platform to reflect on her life and her dreams for the future. In one video, she addressed the complexities of relationships and what is truly needed between 2 people. She joked that some boys made her want to throw a Bible at their foreheads. She reflected that life becomes easier once you learn to forgive, though she cautioned against forgetting so that mistakes are not repeated. She also shared that she often spent her time watching simple videos of cats. She concluded by wishing for a world where people learned to forgive more, noted how cold it was outside, and thanked her viewers for watching before signing off for the last time. Trinity spoke often of her future, sharing goals of joining the army and earning a law degree. These were dreams well within her reach, as she was both highly intelligent and possessed an excellent work ethic. In another clip, she offered advice on how to save money as a teenager. She explained that she wanted to help others build the best versions of themselves while she worked on her own personal growth. She admitted she was not always the smartest with her money, but had learned valuable lessons from her father. She encouraged her viewers, believing that everyone had the potential to succeed. Her philosophy was that saying you cannot do something sets a limit that only you can impose. If you believe you can, she argued, you will have no limits and can overcome every situation. On July 3rd, a worker for the Tennessee Department of Transportation was collecting litter along Vietnam Veterans Boulevard in Hendersonville when they made a gruesome discovery of human remains. The location was near Exit 6 on Veterans Parkway, also known as State Route 386. The remains were found just inside the tree line, and a pair of broken eyeglasses was recovered nearby. An autopsy performed the following day revealed that the individual had suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the head and neck. It was not until the next day that the remains were identified as Trinity Bostic. She was found wearing gray jogging pants and a green tank top, with evidence at the scene indicating that the murder had occurred right there in the woods and that she had not been moved. Investigators found 2 9mm rounds on the ground, 1 spent casing, and 1 live round. The casing was located just 2 feet from Trinity, while the live round likely marked where the shooter had stood. The fatal shot had a downward trajectory, suggesting the killer was standing while Trinity was sitting or squatting. A t-shirt was found hanging from a tree, which was later identified as one Trinity wore in her videos. In one of her final tutorials, Trinity could be seen wearing that very same shirt while doing her hair and makeup, a haunting reminder of the life that had been so abruptly extinguished. Trinity's cell phone was missing from the scene. Records indicated that the device had been completely disconnected from the network by the morning of June 30th. A friend recalled the moment she saw the messages failing to deliver, stating that it was then she knew something terrible had happened. She described the loss of such a loving person as entirely undeserved. Despite the missing device, investigators were able to secure Trinity's phone data from her service provider. They began to reconstruct her movements on the afternoon of June 29th. What they found was a secret plan and a clandestine relationship involving a teenager who was so infatuated that she was willing to trade her supportive family for a dangerous romance. Their plan was to run away, steal a car, and commit robberies for money to fund their new life. 17-year-old Fernando Perez Mejia, a fellow student at Macon High, picked Trinity up that afternoon. Evidence of their plan was captured in a series of digital messages. On June 25th, Trinity had written to him, begging him to come with her because she needed him. They discussed various criminal methods, including conning people or direct robbery. Fernando expressed concern that the police would identify his license plate and ruin his future. Trinity suggested stealing a car and leaving Fernando's vehicle at home to avoid detection, even planning to switch the plates as they made their way toward Alabama. 2 days later, the conversation continued, with Fernando asking if they were going to steal the car at night, to which Trinity confirmed they would. On the afternoon of the 29th, Fernando messaged her to ask if she was ready and where he should pick her up, suggesting the church near her residence. Trinity told him to meet her at the church. It was a meeting that would set the stage for her father reporting her missing only 3 hours later. The messages also revealed that the two were involved in a physical relationship. On June 20th, Trinity had informed Fernando that she was not pregnant following their last encounter. Fernando responded with relief. The two had dated 2 years prior at age 15, but Trinity had ended it after he was unfaithful to her. Trinity had also shared stories with her sister about Fernando's abusive and toxic behavior. Consequently, her family did not approve of him or his presence in her life. In her social media posts, Trinity had even addressed how to handle a text from an ex-boyfriend who claims to miss you after causing you significant pain in the past. She urged her viewers to set boundaries and standards in the year 2024, shortly before detectives arrived at Fernando's home in Hendersonville with a search warrant. Detectives proceeded to pay an unexpected visit to Fernando's residence. They arrived at his home in Hendersonville, armed with a search warrant for both the family house and his vehicle. Fernando initially tried to downplay his connection with Trinity, claiming he had not seen or spoken to her in years. He subtly attempted to distance himself from the unfolding tragedy by referring to the investigation as simply that thing on the news. The investigators asked him directly if he knew Trinity Bostic, to which he feigned confusion. He eventually acknowledged her name, but acted as if she were a distant memory rather than a recent acquaintance. Fernando was not yet aware that the digital trail of his correspondence with Trinity had already been unearthed. The recovered data revealed their secret plan to be together and provided precise location tracking that monitored their joint movements on the very day she disappeared. When asked if he was the last person to see her alive, he denied it, claiming she had merely called him. The detective confronted him directly, stating he knew for a fact that Trinity had come to his house and that Fernando had personally picked her up. When Fernando asked for proof of where this occurred, the detective specified that he had picked her up in Lafayette. While the interrogation continued, officers were meticulously searching Fernando's bedroom, where they discovered a go bag hidden in his closet. Inside the bag were items belonging to Trinity, including a pair of pants and her AirPods, along with a debit card in her name tucked away on a top shelf. Fernando still denied being with her on the 29th, claiming instead that he spent the entire day with his current girlfriend, a young woman named Michaela. The detective pressured him to tell the truth, pointing out that his story was already riddled with easily disprovable lies. He confronted Fernando about the claim of not speaking to her for 2 years, noting they had evidence of him picking her up and bringing her back to his house. Fernando remained defiant, insisting he did not pick her up and that she had only called him while he stayed home. The detective countered this by mentioning cell phone data that placed him and Trinity at the house together. He pointed out that a cell tower near the residence tracked both phones at that specific location for several hours. The investigator emphasized that both phones were at the house together for hours, and now the girl was dead. Fernando's persistent denials were turning the session into a circular and frustrating exchange. The detective explained that a smart individual would not deny undeniable facts, and that it would be more logical to admit he was with her, but that she was alive when they parted. He suggested that perhaps something happened after they were together, offering Fernando a way to explain his presence without admitting to a crime. After roughly 30 minutes, the strategy seemed to work as Fernando changed his story, introducing a mysterious new person into the narrative and claiming Trinity was still alive the last time he saw her. The detective told him he would not hold previous lies against him, acknowledging that everyone lies during investigations. He urged Fernando to take this opportunity to be honest. Fernando then claimed a man named Jose, whose full name he did not know, was actually the one Trinity was involved with. He claimed Trinity had him pick up this Jose in the town of Gallatin. According to this new version of events, after they picked up the mysterious Jose, Fernando was told to drive to Nashville and then several other locations across Tennessee for hours, following Jose's directions. When asked what Jose looked like, Fernando described a man with long hair who appeared to be in his 20s. Fernando continued his story, telling the detective about the events later that evening. He claimed that just past 9:30 p.m., Jose told him to pull over so Trinity could go into the woods to urinate. This happened near Vietnam Veterans Boulevard in Hendersonville, where Trinity and Jose both exited the car and walked into the darkness of the trees. But only Jose returned to the vehicle. Fernando claimed he asked Jose if they were going back for her, but Jose refused, questioning why Fernando cared so much about the girl. As Fernando told his fabricated tale, police searched his car and found a handgun wrapped in a t-shirt under the driver's seat, which matched the shell casing found at the crime. Though the camera recorded intermittently based on movement, it provided a chilling record of the vehicle's history. On the afternoon of June 29th, it captured Trinity in the passenger seat at 2:30 p.m. She was seen using her phone to disable location tracking features, ensuring her father could not use the Find My Phone application to find her. This was a deliberate step in their plan to disappear and start over. The pair drove toward Nashville and across multiple counties for several hours, a journey captured by license plate readers and the vehicle's own dashcam. The camera also recorded the GPS coordinates of their route and muffled audio of the teenagers discussing the details of their criminal plan. They were captured debating which cars to follow and how they might successfully pull off a carjacking, with a focus on how many occupants were inside the target vehicles. Just before 6:30 p.m., the dashcam recorded them actively following a potential target. As the car slowed, Fernando was seen reaching under his seat for his handgun, briefly revealing the weapon before hiding it again. During that separation, Fernando called Trinity 3 times, with one call lasting 24 minutes, though their specific actions during this time remain a mystery. The last footage of Trinity alive was recorded just after 9:00 p.m., showing her embracing Fernando in the car before they traveled to the murder site on Highway 386. Fernando's phone disconnected from the network between 9:54 and 10:14, the likely window of the murder. Although her phone moved away later, Trinity did not. The dashcam activated again at 10:20 p.m., showing Fernando driving alone through the dark. In her past videos, Trinity had spoken about the pain of being disrespected and lied to by those she trusted. Timothy remembered the last time he saw her alive, when she kissed him on the cheek, and he kissed her head before saying goodbye. He had expected to see her again in just a few hours after finishing his work, but the house he returned to was eerily quiet. During his testimony, the prosecution asked Timothy if he had any suspicion that his daughter was secretly meeting with Fernando Mejia. Timothy testified that he had no clue what was happening behind his back, or that the past relationship had been rekindled in secret. Throughout the entire trial, Fernando maintained a chillingly relaxed demeanor, appearing almost bored by the gravity of the situation. Timothy noted with heavy heart that while he had to look at photos of his daughter lying dead in a field, the defendant sat there smiling. This lack of remorse was highlighted by the prosecution, who described how Fernando went about his life as if nothing had happened. Evidence revealed that after leaving Trinity's body in the woods, he calmly stopped at Taco Bell to purchase a slushie on his way home. Only days later, he was seen joking and laughing in a drive-thru for fried chicken while with his other girlfriend, Michaela. Since Fernando declined to testify in his own defense, the court was left to piece together the dark motives behind such a violent act. The district attorney suggested that Fernando was leading a double life and was desperate to keep his affair with Trinity a secret. The prosecution pointed to an earlier pregnancy scare as a potential stressor that pushed the young man toward a permanent and lethal solution. The defense countered this by arguing that by June 29th, the pregnancy was no longer a concern and therefore not a motive. They argued that the state failed to prove premeditation, suggesting instead that there was no logical reason for the crime to occur. However, Trinity's mother offered her own theory, suggesting that Trinity had informed Fernando she had added his girlfriend on Snapchat. She believed that Fernando panicked at the thought of his lies being exposed and decided he had to eliminate Trinity to protect his reputation. The trial was brief, lasting only a few days, and the defense opted not to call a single witness to the stand. In their closing statements, the state reminded the jury that Fernando was the one who brought a deadly weapon into the woods that night. They portrayed Trinity as a girl who was simply along for the ride, unaware that the person she loved was leading her to her death. When the jury was sent to deliberate, they required only 25 minutes to reach a unanimous and final conclusion. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read aloud. Fernando Mejia was found guilty of murder in the first degree. During the impact statements, Trinity's mother spoke directly to the killer, mocking the sheer stupidity of the way he committed the crime. She pointed out that he had recorded his own movements and the incriminating evidence all day on his own vehicle's dashcam. Her sister Tassa spoke of Trinity's unwavering love for him and how she was willing to sacrifice everything for their future together. Because Fernando was only 17 years old at the time of the killing, he was legally ineligible for the death penalty in Tennessee. He was instead sentenced to life in prison, ensuring he would spend the rest of his days behind bars for his heartless actions. Outside the courthouse, Trinity Bostic expressed a somber sense of relief that the long wait for justice was finally over for his little girl. He spoke to the cameras one last time, declaring that they had finally secured justice for Trinity Lee Bostic. In her final digital reflections, Trinity had wondered aloud why there is so much hatred in a world where our lifespans are so short. She spoke of the strength it takes to push forward, even after seeing a loved one die, a strength her own family would now have to find. As Kevin signed off from the lounge, he welcomed new members and reminded his audience that in the digital age, no crime remains hidden forever.